Okay, guys. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you very much for all these messages in the live chat as well. Sorry for there's a couple of technical glitches, but we are good to go. Today is a very special episode because I'm very excited to talk to this person today. I've been meaning to get him on the show for a while. I've been on his show already twice before, so this is something that I've been looking forward to for quite a bit. VeeduVidz is a YouTuber who makes some fantastic videos about religion, about free speech, about democracy, and the sort of different challenges that it faces in the West. It's very interesting content. I would really recommend you go check out his channel. And I'm very excited to get talking to him today. So welcome to the show, VeeduVidz.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's a real pleasure to be on here. Like you said, you've been twice on my show, and I'm really happy to be here and to get started, man. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right. Fantastic. So let's get into it. One of the, if the people that might not be aware of VeeduVidz, first of all, shame on you. Go check out his channel. Secondly, what I really enjoy about his channel, and something that I was telling you as well before we got live there, that you approach it in a way, you approach criticism and you approach discussing heavy issues in such a interesting way that it doesn't come off as sanctimonious, it doesn't come off as preachy, it doesn't come off as self-righteous in any way. It just comes off as a guy that's trying to have an open, honest conversation. And satire is such a powerful weapon for that. And I know that's one part of what you do, but I think it's such a powerful tool. And it's become so evident now by all these stand-up comedians who are becoming political commentators, and it's sort of almost on TV, it's sort of ruining the vibe a little bit. But what you do is actually something that's, it's managed to stay fresh and be fresh. And is that why you chose satire? Is that one of the reasons why you chose satire, or is you were just like, this is something that is funny to me and I just want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Why did I choose satire? I think because I like making jokes. I like acting and messing around. There's obviously that element of that. There's always a bit of a clown or a bit of a performer in me. But the reason why satire is so important and so underrated, especially in the Muslim world, in the Middle East, maybe in the West, like you were saying, it's kind of become preachy now. They've kind of overdone it. They've overcooked it. But within the Middle East, the West, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, whatever you want to call it, it is so required because, unfortunately, yes, there are problems with corruption and there are post-colonial problems in those countries, but there are, and we'll get onto that, there are genuine problems with what the people believe. And one of the ways that you can highlight inconsistencies or silly beliefs in people, in societies, is satire. Is to call a spade and say, guys, this thing we believe in is nonsense. This practice that our culture or our religion or our society upholds and protects is destructive. Is that me or you? So
I think that might be. I think that might be you. Yeah.
Okay, that's me. Yeah. Better be careful. I was like, where am I hearing this police from? Yeah. But we really need to have a robust and open conversation about religion, about society, about so many things in our countries. And satire is one of those things. And satire, by the way, is one of those things that dictators hate. They hate being ridiculed. They hate people saying, by the way, you've got shit on your face. They don't want people to point out. They don't like it. And I'm sorry to say, we need to have satire in the Muslim world, in the Middle East, in the third world, developing world, whatever you want to call it, because we do stupid things just like everyone else. Simple as that,
Yep, that's so true. And it's you bring up a good point about dictators not enjoying satire and not enjoying being made fun of, because they're very insecure about that power, because they know that power is not necessarily legitimate. Because if it was legitimate and if it was voluntary, people gave them the power voluntarily, then they wouldn't have any problem with making fun of. But unfortunately, in a lot of cases, the power that has been acquired has not been acquired according to the wishes of the people. It has been acquired despite the wishes of the people. So I think that's a big part of that as well, right?
Listen, anyone that says you can't make fun of me, and the way I'm. Right? If you're gonna
Right. Hey, Waleed, you're breaking up a little bit there, man. Your screen's a little frozen. I know. I saw his screen's a little bit frozen. I know. There's a little bit of distortion. I might get him to reconnect again, but we'll figure it out. Hey, thanks for so many people coming in and joining us today, man. I really appreciate it. I got a big announcement. Yeah, a little technical issue. That's what was happening before. That's why we got late by a couple of minutes, because there was a couple of technical issues. But we'll get that fixed up. We'll get that fixed up, and we'll be back and nice and ready to go. Hey, man.
Hey, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry, I don't know if it's mine or what's going on. Sorry.
Mine seems to be okay. I think because people can still hear me, and people can still in the comments I can kind of tell that people can still hear me. So I think you might have just cut out.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
Yeah. No
So I was saying that if you have a leader who's saying do not make fun of me, you should be very suspicious of that person, because if you are a leader, by definition, you are asserting that you know something, or you have the right message, the right truth, or the right, whatever you want to call it, the right path for your people. So that person comes with responsibilities, and he or she needs to have thick skin. It is not an option for them to say, do not make fun of me. And unfortunately, we have in the Abrahamic religions a tradition of either blasphemy law or apostasy law. You can't mock this, you can't mock that, you can't draw cartoons. And this is probably one of the most damaging aspects of the religion. You know, it's fine. You know, someone asked me yesterday, what things would you reform in Islam? Forget about reforming
Oh, looks like we cut out again. It's funny because when we were 20 minutes before we came online, we were talking and everything was absolutely fine. There was no cutouts. The voice was perfect. The video was perfect. But 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes before we went live, the video started cutting out, and this kind of stuff started happening, and it's just continuing to happen. Hopefully, I think it might be some like internet connectivity issues. Hopefully, we'll be backing up and running again soon. But there's a lot of people today joining us and interacting in the chat, and bloody Kushal Mehra is here as well, trolling us. So I'm hoping he continues to abuse and troll. Should be fun. And in the aspect of Veedu's character, he listens and gives the opportunity to speak to anyone and everyone. Yeah, that's true, man. That's why I really enjoyed when I went on his show as well. Is that he likes to genuinely get to know stuff. He likes to genuinely excuse me. He likes to genuinely get to know people's opinions and what they're thinking. He's not one of those guys that is just like, oh, you said this, now let me counter this and interrupt you and say stuff like that. So that I really enjoy. So yeah, hopefully we can get him back on. Maybe there's some kinds of connectivity issues where he's falling in and out a little bit. But yeah, he's from the Charvak podcast. You guys should go check it out as well, because it's a really good podcast. Not for any other reason, but for the discussions that it has. You know, it's a very he's an open-minded person who has some very good conversations with people whose opinions you'd like to sort of know and hear. Oh, here we are.
Oh man, listen, I'm so sorry. I've actually
Don't worry.
restarted the internet now, so hopefully
Okay.
we shouldn't have a. Really sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, no worries at all. No worries at all. I was just talking to all the people in the chat, so all good to go. So let me just pick up from. Why don't you just pick up from where you were earlier?
I actually can't remember what was the last thing you heard me
Okay,
say.
I'll tell you what. I think we were talking about something along the lines of, if there's someone who has power, then, and if they're saying that don't make fun of me, then there's something wrong there. There's something missing there, because you're the person who has all the power in the world right now. So you're the person who should be most eligible for sort of fun making and
Criticism, yeah.
Mickey taking. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what I said in one of my rants. I can't actually.
I think you also were saying that somebody was telling you something on one of your videos. That's when you cut out.
Yeah. So someone asked me what would you reform about Islam? And I said, we could forget about science and religion, forget about even the gender disparity. All of those things come later. The first two things you need to secure is freedom of conscience and freedom of speech. Someone should be able to leave a religion or join a religion without any threats of violence or without any punishment. Someone should be able to speak what's on their mind, say, I don't agree with this person, I think this leader is stupid or his policy is stupid, without getting killed, without being imprisoned. Freedom of conscience and freedom of speech. If you secure those two things, if you secure those two reforms, everything else will follow. Because now people can genuinely, openly investigate what is happening in their land, what is happening in their religion, country, wherever it is. So for me, those two things are locked in Islam. You can't say anything against the Prophet. You can't say anything against the companions or the Quran, or anything. You can't say anything like that. That's too inflammatory or controversial, because people explode. It's like you press a red button, and these guys who were acting completely normal before go absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. And again, leaving Islam in certain Muslim countries comes with a very heavy cost. Even if your life, even if you don't get killed, you can be imprisoned. If you're not imprisoned, you can be socially marginalized. So where is the freedom in this? You only really know how many people follow your ideology when there is no threat to leave it. And you only know how good your ideology is on its own merit when people can criticize it without the fear of being killed or harmed. So if you are a prophet and you say God spoke to you, firstly, you're saying there is a God. And out of all the millions of people on the planet, he spoke to you. He told you the truths of the universe. And he's telling you, you go out there and you lead these people. These are very big claims and massive assertions. And the bigger the claim, the more criticism and the more ridicule. Not the less. Unfortunately, in the Muslim world, they've got it the other way around. The bigger the claim of being, spiritual and levitating, whatever it is, and all that kind of stuff, the less criticism. And this is why I said in that rant that why Islam would never be better than the West until they get these things right. It's not about. If people say, "Oh, technology and science," okay, that comes later. You should be. If you can't think, you can't create anything.
But these things are all connected. You're talking about technology and science, and these things are all connected. You have these people who are restrained in so many ways. How do you expect these people to be mentally free enough to be able to investigate seriously in science and technology and stuff like that? When they've been taught and they're saying that, okay, this kind of science technology is not important, don't think about that, think about this, and this is the only thing you're supposed to think about, then you can't realistically have any aspirations or expectations of matching the West in terms of science and technology, because you're just not programmed to think that way. You know what I mean?
That is 100% correct. I remember, I think I was watching a clip on YouTube some time back where Saudi Arabia has built these absolutely amazing laboratories, like state-of-the-art labs, all the equipment, all the gizmos, tech, whatever you want to call it. And they are in pristine condition. Why are they not producing any world-winning or award-winning scientists or inventions or anything like that? You can buy the technology, but you can't buy the mindset. Right?
That's exactly what it is.
They have got all the technology in Saudi Arabia. They've invested millions, if not billions, into all these different things. But can you tell me any Muslim country that produces anything other than oil that is of consequence to the world GDP? Right? I can't remember which study it was. They were saying if you excluding oil, if you were to take out the GDP or the contribution of the Muslim world to the overall GDP of the world, it would be like a percent or even less than that.
Wow.
So can you believe we have become, and I say we even though I'm ex-Muslim, but as a people,
yes,
we have become so inconsequential, so like sort of the froth on the waves in the sea, like that. If the world goes one way, we'll go with it. If it goes the other way, we'll go with it. And it hurts. I find ideologically or theologically, I'm not on that level, so I don't agree with them. But I have family members in Pakistan. I have family members across the Muslim world, and I want them to improve. It's not out of hate that I'm making fun of them. I'm saying, guys, we can do better.
Yeah.
Right. We can do better, and they're just not.
Yeah. Do you believe that there need to be some fundamental changes within the sort of within the religious sort of beliefs or the religious construction, whatever it is? There need to be some fundamental changes for that kind of belief to be able to come out and actually flower? Or do you think that it is possible within the current framework? Or do you think that there need to be some fundamental changes?
I certainly don't think within the current framework. If we were to run a simulation and for like 500 years and things stayed relatively, relatively the same as they are now in the Muslim world, I think you would get more of the same. I don't think you would see any stark difference in terms of producing scientists or amazing economists or whatever you want to call it. People that really, really leave their mark on the world. I don't think you would see that much of a difference. Things may become better over time, but at a snail's pace.
Yeah.
So, if you keep driving a car that goes 20 miles an hour, guess what? You're going to still drive 20 miles an hour, even if it's for a very long time. So we need to change the engine in our country, the real engine. And like you were saying, the engine is, are we allowing our people to think?
Right.
Can we separate church and state? Now, arguably, many Muslim countries are, technically speaking, secular, but the religious sentiment is so strong that even if a government person, someone in the government said, what, maybe we should get rid of the blasphemy law or get rid of apostasy law or whatever it is, it would cause an outrage. And Pakistan is a prime example of that. We keep coming back to Pakistan because it's a country I was born in. I've got a lot of love for Pakistan, which is why I'm, when you have your first crush, your first girlfriend or whatever it is, and when she breaks your heart, it hurts the most, right? It hurts the most. It's the same way. I've got a lot of love for Pakistan, which is why when they do these stupid things, it hurts me even more.
It's the same case for a lot of Indians as well, mate. Because the thing is that it's within living bloody memory that that we were part of the same country. These two people. Yeah. It's within living memory that they were part of the same country. So when you see the hatred from Pakistan, when you see what they're taught in their curriculums and stuff like that, it's something that affects a lot of Indians as well. And there's especially Indians that were, let's say, that used to live in those areas, especially like Punjabi Indians, Kashmiri Indians, and Bengali Indians and stuff like that. And they when they see stuff like that, they don't. A lot of them don't even understand it. Like, why? What is the hate for? Dude, we used to be your neighbors. What is that hate for? So, it's what you feel is something that a lot of Indians feel as well, is that we're essentially the exact same bloody people. Why is there a need for this animosity and for this, feeling of otherness? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very unfortunate that I don't even know where to begin with this, because it's so, this problem really runs deep, more than religion, but more on a psychological level, is that unfortunately, the Muslim world, by and large, of course you have exceptions, but we are victims, and we are okay being victims. It's easier for us to blame other people all the time for our own problems, rather than say, maybe, you know what, we effed up. Maybe it's not the Indians, maybe it's not the Saudis, not the Israelis, not the Americans, not the British. Maybe it's us, which is why we are in this mess. Of course, there are external influences that destabilize your own country, whatever it is. No doubt. Like, for example, the Soviet war, the whole Afghan nonsense that spilled into Pakistan. There's so many factors. I'm not trying to simplify. I understand all of these things. I've read this stuff. At the end of the day, you have to look at yourself. And this is what a lot of people are not interested in doing. It's all deflection, deflection, deflection. So like you were saying, man, like Indians and Pakistanis genetically, culturally, same, like same food, same culture, same clothes, same sport, same movies, everything. Everything is the bloody same, man. But you know, when you, I really need to do some more reading on this. But the more I read about Pakistan and how it was created and why it was created, and I look at where we've come now,
right,
you know, it really does make me question. And people think, oh, you'll sell out or this and that. Can we have genuinely pursue an intellectual cause without being called sell out or sell in? Yeah. Can we just pursue it for the sake of pursuing it? I haven't made up my mind yet, but I'm researching and I'm investigating and trying to be honest. And by the way, this doesn't make me feel happy or great. I mean, my family are Pakistani, whatever it is. And of course, my quote unquote pride might be hurt. But if something is true, then it's true. And then let my pride be hurt. I'll get over it in the long run. You know, and I think that's the kind of attitude that we really need to take on, is that, listen, man, your pride don't mean shit, right? The truth is the truth. And I was, you know, there's that Hassan Nisar, that journalist in Pakistan. He said this statement, which really stuck with me. He said that, you know, you cannot mutilate history, but you will be mutilated yourself. And he was talking about the way Muslims have this rose-tinted view of the Islamic Empire. Everything was great. Everything was hunky-dory. We went to Spain. We went to here. We went to there. And it was just all fantastic. Guys, some of that might be true, but you are ignoring large swathes of history. And in doing so, you are leading yourself down a very destructive path, because you are chasing a ghost. We can recreate this. Back in those days, everything was perfect, and we can recreate it. That is a ghost. It does not exist. And in trying to pursue that delusion, you will be mutilated. Well, what can I say?
I know it's also a very strange phenomenon. It's an incredible thing that I've never been able to really wrap my head around, because you see, the other day I met this guy, which started me to think about this again. I met this guy whose name was Qasim, and he's from India, and so. And it sometimes it boggles my mind, because people, like, you know, a lot of Indians and a lot of Pakistanis have that feeling that, oh, we're actually not from here. We're actually Arabs. Every single one of us are descendants of Arabs, which is the exact opposite of the truth. And so you have kids in India that are named Taimur. You know, a guy that like massacred millions of people in India. Then you have people called Qasim, again, a guy that massacred millions of people in the country, and stuff like that. And there's kids called Aurangzeb as well. And I don't need to tell that story again, because it's the same story. And it's an incredible thing, because it's like a Jewish guy naming their kid Adolf, and people say, Sham, that's a stupid extreme example, but it's not, man. It's a like for like example. It's like it's a guy that murdered millions of Jews, and the Jew names his son Adolf, and it's the exact same thing that's happening in India. And it really boggles my mind, this disconnection that they have. Like, I understand you're not Hindu, you don't think that way, I understand, but you're not an Arab, dude. You're an Indian. Like, you go to Saudi Arabia and see the treatment that they have towards you, and the way they look at you, the way they talk about you, and you still have that feeling of okay, no, I'm an Arab, man. This is what I descended from. Like, it's an incredible dissonance that people have.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you said that, because it's equivalent of a black African who was taken by a Christian slave owner to America, who had an African name, whatever it was, and then he's taken to America, and then he's like, thank God for Jesus. Thank God, I want to quit. It's like, sorry?
Yeah.
Thank God for Jesus. What do you mean, thank God for Jesus? The very people saying Jesus, Jesus were the people that enslaved you. So the same thing works within the Middle East or whatever, the Muslim world, non-Arab countries, where you have guys who were colonized by the Arabs, who were killed by the Arabs, some became Muslim, some didn't. Nevertheless, and now they've adopted their culture and whatever it is, and it's fine. I get it. History, is always going to be people merging and fusion of different cultures and whatever it is. But the fact is, you need to recognize that this happened, and it was not a good thing.
Yeah.
Because if it happened now, and it is happening now, when people say, "Oh, Iraq War," right? I often say, and this might not be a direct example, but when people say, "Oh, Muslim empires went to foreign countries, and there was a oppressive regime there, and they, with the help of the people, they got rid of the regime, and they installed a better system." Okay, America went to Iraq. Okay, fine. I know it's massive lies, whatever.
Yeah.
But they went there. There was Saddam Hussein. He was a very bad guy. They got rid of that regime, and they're trying to install democracy. Sounds good to me, right? So this is what I'm saying. If you want to play this game of saying, it's okay for me to go to someone else's country and, completely derail the whole system, kill people in the process, and say, oh, but so what if they die? But now they're all Muslims. And okay, well, so what if the Iraqis die? But now their next generations will follow democracy and liberalism. This is the kind of nonsense you run into.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking for a consistent approach. This is how successful the colonization of these minds have been, that they see themselves as equal to as the people that took over them, and they can't see the difference.
Yeah. Do you think there's any merit in this point that, and we were talking about this a little earlier before we went live as well, that, the way when we're talking about school curriculums for children that are taught in schools, the governments, they refresh the curriculum every year, new information comes. And so they use that new information, and then they utilize that new information to change the curriculum to reflect today's time. And that is how education evolves. That is how people get smarter generation after generation after generation. Why can't we do that with religious scripture? Why is it impossible to do that with religious scripture? Like, I know that there's that danger that, people might be like, okay, well, now in the light of current knowledge, this religious system doesn't really make any sense. But why are we so hesitant? Why are we so eager to do it in every other case, but in the case of religious scriptures? And let me just give you, just for honesty's sake, let me give you an example from Hinduism now, because we've been talking about Islam this whole time. So the caste stuff, for example, I understand that people say that, yes, this is not what the Varna system, which is called the caste system in English, this is not what the Varna system was supposed to be. The Varna system was an earned system, that you earn your position as a Kshatriya, you earn your position as a Vaishya or a Brahmin, whatever it is, you earn that system. And now it's become a system which is, you get it by birth. So rather than being the most learned guy in the room or the most well-read guy in the room and spend your entire life learning, and that's how you become a Brahmin, now all you need to do is be born in a Brahmin family, and that's what makes you a Brahmin. So, which is a stupid system, number one. It's a completely stupid system. And why can't, as a civilization in India, why can't we get rid of that system and make it an earned system again? That you only get the right to call yourself a Brahmin if you're actually the most well-read person in a room. You only get the chance to call yourself a Kshatriya if you've actually served in the army, fought in battles, shed blood, killed people. That's the only way you get to call yourself a Kshatriya, not just because you're some little pussy born in a Kshatriya family, So we as a civilization in India need to do that. We need to get rid of that system collectively and, replace it with a sort of earned system again. And as a civilization, we need to take cognizance of that. Some people don't, but some people still do. And I think in the light of the stuff that we have today, why can't we do that with the Abrahamic systems as well? Why can't we edit the stuff out which says that, okay, being gay is actually fine? it's a pretty normal thing. So let's get rid of that passage from our books.
Yeah, absolutely. I think within the Abrahamic traditions, change has come at a huge cost. As we can see in Christian Europe, the amount of blood that was shed in reforming, in changing the way they thought about church and state, the way they thought about science and so on and so forth, science and so on and so forth. Sorry, came at a huge cost. For some reason, about monotheism, it's super rigid. It's possibly why it's more successful, or in terms of it doesn't give you another option, if that makes sense. It's either you die or you follow what we say. So there isn't much room for maneuver, really. So in a purely spread a religion, because you're not saying, oh, well, you can believe in your thing and we believe in our. That's why there's no Roman pagans or Greek pagans or anymore, because they're like, yeah, you're going to have a god here, have another one. Now it's like, no, we have our God, we have our prophet, we have a certain way of doing things, and this is how you have to follow our way of living. So it's so much more rigid, which is why it's much harder to get reform, and reform comes at a huge cost. Now within Islam, it's even harder, because with it, it's not only is the prophet the most perfect being in terms of his own personal sort of, what do you want to call it, dealings with people, his own morals, but he's perfect as a statesman. He's perfect in every as a military leader, in every aspect or in every domain. He is perfect. So maybe with like some guru, you could have said he's like the best at meditation, but I'm not going to get foreign policy from him. Am I? Right. So maybe you could have got away. There's maybe a bit more leeway with that. But with the prophet, everything you can possibly think of, he is perfect in that regard, which is why you would often hear Muslims say that Islam is a complete way of life. And it's not just a nice cliche, but they genuinely mean that. So and on top of that, the Quran is the direct word of God.
Yeah.
Bible is so-and-so saw Jesus do this. Mark wrote down what, or whoever wrote down, Jesus said it. A bit more leeway, a bit more flexibility. The Quran is not any flexibility, which is why, if there is ever going to be genuine reform, I'm not talking about, like you have some fatwa saying at one time, coffee is haram, and then they obviously overturned that. Then they said the telephone is haram. Then they overturned that. These are sort of minor fatwas here and there, which do have an impact, by the way. But their opinions, fatwa by definition is a legal opinion, but they haven't actually changed the text of the Quran. So for someone to do that is a monumental challenge, which I don't know if it can happen. The best, most practical way that someone can get around it is say, we will change our interpretation of this verse.
Right.
Realistically, that's the best way, most practical way that I think that they can get around it. Other than that, the only other option is to leave Islam, which many people are now doing.
Yeah. Do you see? So the interpretation part that you're talking about, that probably sounds like a more short-term solution. People are like, okay, well, this is not which is what a lot of Muslims say today as well, that, oh, well, this is not what Islam is supposed to represent. And this is not how, this is just what the terrorists are doing, or whatever they're doing. It is the wrong interpretation of Islam. And does that help matters in any way, or does that just further obfuscate the issue?
So this type of reformation will always be reactionary, always, because when some other civilization, or even if it's even with your own country, forget about other people, even with your own country, things change, societies change, whether it's technology or geopolitics, whatever it is, and you're always constantly saying, oh, now we've got this problem, now we've got to interpret the verse in this way, now we've got to interpret the verse in that way. And one famous example is when this is during, I think I don't know exactly when it was, maybe maybe a long time ago. I was speaking to a Muslim, I think he's an astrophysicist. I can't remember if he's astronomer or astrophysicist, Dr. Osama Hassan. Mm-hmm. He's a very religious Muslim, but he's a very good scientist at the same time. Is he
the guy that works for the Quilliam Foundation?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So me and him had a very interesting conversation. It's on my channel, where he was saying, if you get into this reactionary type of interpretation, what happens is you end up falsifying the Quran, because there's a story in the Quran about Joseph, I believe it is, Joseph, and he had like 7 older brothers or something like that, and they were being very unfair to him, very sort of rude, and they treated him very badly. And in the end, to cut a long story short, in the end, he ended up being like a very prominent person in the state, and they came to him for help. So the roles were reversed, and he also had a dream where 7 moons bowed down to him. Right, this was a dream of his. Now Muslims looked at that verse, and this was when we found out that there were like 7 or 8 whatever planets in the solar system, and they said, guys, you just discovered this now. We had this in the Quran 1400 years ago. And what ended up happening is they actually ended up discovering more planets in the solar system, which ended up falsifying their interpretation.
Right.
So this reactionary type of interpretation may be like 10-year, 50-year kind of, it's got a sort of expiration date. But the real reform is when you fundamentally change the way we think. And Hassan Nisar said, there was this one fatwa, I made a video, I translated his video, where the Sheikh al-Islam in the Ottoman Empire said the printing press is haram. So I know. So while Europe is printing books and everyone is reading Descartes, everyone is reading Socrates, everyone is reading these guys, Muslim world is stagnated for hundreds of years. And the reason why they actually made that fatwa, do you know what the reason was? It was because they said if common people get hold of the religious books, like the Hadith or the Quran or whatever it is, if common people get hold of this, then they will misinterpret the Quran or they will misinterpret the Hadith, which mean the whole. So this is the reason why we can't give them the printing press.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is again a reactionary way of thinking. This insecurity that what if common people get hold of books? What if they start reading and come to the wrong conclusions? So fundamentally, you have to change the way you think. Change the engine of the car, not just paint the car a different color.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And what would it take, according to you? You are someone who it comes from that experience. What would it take for people to be like, okay, we need to edit this book. It's bloody time that we edited this book. The reason I say this, because people can criticize Indian philosophy as much as they like, and they should, which they do. But at the end of the day, you can't say that it is not amenable to change, and it is not amenable or open to different ideas. The fact that Indians consider Gautam Buddha as an avatar of Vishnu, and they consider every bloody Indian has like a statue of Gautam Buddha in their house, or a quote by Gautam Buddha in their house, or something like that. And the reason they consider somebody like that, who criticized a lot of Indian Hindu practices, they consider him a saint, says a lot about the nature of Indian society or Indian philosophy to be open to new ideas and to criticism. So what do you think, in your opinion, would it take for something like that to transpire in the Muslim world, where people are like, do we need to get rid of some of this stuff?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think realistically, the what do you want to call it? The challenge, or the what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, the task of reforming or changing the Quran is so, like I said, literally, it's easier to split an atom, with your 2 hands. So I think, practically speaking, the best way, if there is a way, is to say church and state. You can believe whatever the hell you want to believe. Some people believe that the Prophet was made out of light. People believe in all sorts of things. Like when he was born, there was no mucus. He was like ready-made, whatever you want to call it. Okay, chalo tika. If you want to believe it, you can believe it. No problem. I'm not going to argue with you. Genuinely don't give a damn. But don't bring it into the cold science of statehood. Can we at least get that? And this is, like I said, I'm going to stick to what I said before. Let's change 2 things. Apostasy law, blasphemy law. You can keep all your other, whatever you want to call it. laws or traditions, but can we get rid of these two things? Because the people that are genuinely inquisitive, and the people, even whether you're Muslim or not Muslim, inquisitive people who want to change the way people think, they will be allowed to flourish. Right now, there is so much potential within the Muslim world that is being crushed and suppressed because of laws like this, which don't allow you to think. We are our worst enemy right now. So let's have separation of church and state, and say, regardless of how passionate you are about your religion or your prophet, that should not influence you in taxes or laws for minorities or whatever it is. And this is a huge challenge, which I don't even know. I don't know if we're getting worse or better, especially with Imran Khan and his blasphemy law. That, like I said, you know, I looked up this guy, you know, amazing, good-looking cricketer, the champion, philanthropist. You know, he genuinely has done a lot of work in Pakistan, which I think is fantastic, and I think he's a natural leader. But when he succumbs to the pressure of the Islamic right in Pakistan, it intellectually takes us backwards.
Do you think he succumbs, or do you think this is something that he himself believes?
This is what I am unsure about. I definitely think with his new wife, who I don't mean to make this a personal attack on him, but with his new wife who's super religious and burqa and this and that, birni sab, you know, whatever. You know, for all the good things about Imran Khan, I think he's got a very bad taste in women. The only wife I think was the best one was the first one.
Okay.
The other two, I mean, especially the second one, I can't believe he got into that trap. But she's just anyway, forget her. But the third one, this whole birni, religious, and just everything that's surrounding that context is very fishy, and I just don't get it. I think he's got a very bad taste in women, and I think his wife, who is a super religious person, uber kind of, you know, religious, may have influenced him. Of course, it's impossible for me to say yes or no, but it's likely. Of course, your wife influences you, and you influence your wife. He must have religiously been aligned with her. And on top of that, you have these, I think it's called the TLP in Pakistan, the sort of Khadim Hussain Rizvi, absolute gutter sewage kind of people. Really? He said, you know, when that cartoon competition was announced in Holland, he had his own fatwa saying any Pakistani or Muslim in Holland has a right to go into his house and kill him.
Wow.
And everyone's like, oh, not takbir, Allah.
Oh my God.
So he got like 2-3% of the vote or the seats, whatever it is, in the Pakistani parliament. So it's not huge, but that pressure group is there. And it seems like if you want to quell those people, no, it's fine. I agree with the blasphemy law. Don't worry. We will teach those guys, those Europeans, blasphemy law. And not only that, we want an international blasphemy law. No one should be allowed to make fun of the Prophet. It just racks my brain. Guys, your country is going through so many problems, economic, religious, social, political, and you want to focus on blasphemy laws. Yeah. This shows you where the mind of the Muslim is.
You know the crazy thing? I don't know if you know about this, but here's the crazy thing, that there's people in India that want like blasphemy laws, and they're not all Muslims as well. There are like Hindus and Sikhs that are currently vying to pass like blasphemy laws. There's a chief minister of the Indian state of Punjab that says that wants to pass a law which makes it illegal to make fun of or insult other people's religions. And that is happening in bloody India. And Indians who say that we are the most liberal culture on the planet are allowing this to happen, and are not just allowing this to happen, but are some of them are actively supporting it. But thankfully, there's a huge amount of outrage against this on social media as well, against these bloody laws. But it shows you a little bit, because it boggles my mind that something like this can pass in India, that people can be like, okay, if you make fun of Ganesha, we'll throw you in jail. Are you kidding me? The reason we have so many bloody gods and goddesses, you know, so to say, in India, is because there are so many different ways of thinking and feeling and talking and living your life. You know, you don't like Ganesha, do something else. You don't like Shiva, do something else, man. That's your life. That's how you get to live your life. And I think this is I think there's a problem that I think India and other countries need to fight as well, because it's just a bloody shame that this happens.
Absolutely. And the thing, I've been very slowly getting into Hinduism, and I spoke to Kaushal Mehra, our very good friend who's now trolling the comment section.
Internet abusing us.
Yes, of course. There should be a blasphemy law against him, because he's saying some really outrageous something. I'm just joking. But when I was speaking to him, I realized how unprepared I was in just trying to understand Hinduism. Coming from an Abrahamic perspective is very formulaic. This is the God, this is the prophet, this is the book. It's very linear. This is it. There's not much choice. With Hinduism, it's like almost like Indian spirit of salesman. Agar ye khana hai to ye kha lo, agar wo khana hai to wo kha lo. Ye bhi koi baat nahi, dono mila do, koi baat nahi, mila do, koi harj nahi hai. Just sort of that sort of Indian salesman spirit. If you want this, chalo theek hai, discount chalo, wo bhi le lo, half price chalo, ye bhi God, wo. It's like, okay, can you do that? Yes, you can. You can do anything you want. That kind of freedom. People make, even myself included, back in the days of Hinduism, now these hundreds of gods, and oh my God, one's an elephant. But when you actually look at it, you realize this is what freedom in religion kind of looks like. You can choose which God you want to worship and how you want to worship. And as Kaushal was saying, he's a dharmic skeptic, he's an atheist, but he doesn't need to rid himself of the Hindu label because his geography or his culture allows for him to exist. And I think there's a very similar thing within Judaism, because it's older, maybe it's a bit not as harsh, or it's maybe reformed a bit more than Christianity and Islam, that you can be an atheist Jew. So when I look at that and I think, guys, there's so many things wrong within religion, or a bit backward or whatever. But if you have that tradition, not compromise that openness with blasphemy laws or you can't insult this, you can't insult that. I actually look to the Hindus and praise them, because I praise you because you made that video about Apu getting absolutely caricatured in Simpsons, and of course everyone gets caricatured in Simpsons. That's the whole point, But you said, listen, this is fine. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. He's making fun of the Hindu gods, and that's fine. And I think I look to you guys and think, I wish we had some of the Muslims saying that about when someone, like within South Park, someone takes the piss out of the Prophet. It's like, it's fine, that's their thing. Let them do it. If you don't like it, don't watch it. So you really need to, and you're doing a fantastic job doing that. Protect that. You can be religious, but still protect the openness. Even with like. In the Indian context, a Muslim can be a Muslim. The thing is, in the Indian context, only something small needs to change. For the Indian Muslims, only something small needs to change. You can completely be a true believer in Allah and Muhammad and stuff like that. The only thing you need to change is to truly become an Indian Muslim, is to say that, okay, the truth that I believe, I also understand that that is not the only truth out there in the universe. That is literally the only thing that you need to expect, only thing that you need to accept. You can accept that, okay, this is what I believe, and this is what my Hindu brothers and sisters believe, and both of those things are absolutely fine and legitimate. That's totally cool. And as long as, if you can take that small step as well, you see the insanely big generational change that happens sort of in India as well, and the relationship that improves between Hindus and Muslims in India. It makes us see change, just that small acceptance. I agree, and I think there is this very one-dimensional way of thinking within Abrahamic religions, more so in Islam, that this is the truth, everyone else is in falsehood.
Yeah.
Can you give other people a bit more credit, please? Can you just say, maybe from my position, where I'm standing, Islam makes most sense to me. From my upbringing, from my country, or whatever you want to call it, culture, as it stands, Islam makes more sense to me. But someone on the other side of the border, or someone down the street who is a Hindu or Christian or atheist, whoever they are, maybe their worldview makes more sense to them. And maybe I will come to their worldview, or they will come to mine. So this, unfortunately, this openness, I mean, is there selectively in Islam? You have like, lakum dinukum waliyadin, to you have your religion, and to me my religion. And that's fine, but unfortunately, there's also this thing, this sort of intolerance, this sort of one-dimensional, black and white thinking. At the end of the day, we have the truth, and that is the most arrogant one of the most arrogant things I think you can possibly say. I don't believe in God, but I've said, if you can convince me, more than welcome, right? I am a libertarian capitalist. If you can convince me communism is the right way to go ahead. I'm open to. I've changed my views on so many political issues, economic issues, religious issues, quite a lot in the last 5 years. At one point in time, I was anti-Zionist. Israel is the worst country on the planet. America is a white supremacist colonial thingy. Islam is the truth, and communism. I used to believe this kind of stuff, and communism or socialism is great. I was basically a Muslim SJW. Thank God I was that before I was on YouTube, but I was that kind of character 5 years ago. You know, reading Noam Chomsky and all the. I was really, really deep into that kind of stuff, and almost kind of opposite in a strange way. So listen, always leave the door open for people to change their mind, and do not punish them for doing so, please. And but I mean, yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, like, in your conversations, because you speak to a lot of Muslims as well, you do a lot of interviews with Muslims, and generally speaking, because you come from Pakistan, you probably talk to a lot of Muslims as well, or have spoken to a lot of Muslims. Today, when you speak to Muslims, either through YouTube for your show or in general, do you see any sort of movement towards, opening that door, or even slightly cracking the door a little bit at all?
I think it depends on which kind of Pakistani you speak to. Some Pakistanis are just literally like Western people, and there's no real difference. Some of my cousins in like Karachi or whatever it is, they're like pretty much belonging like in the UK or and America, and we know problems with them. Even some in Lahore, but it really is. Forget about Muslims in the Muslim countries. Let's talk about Muslims in the West, because they have huge problems when it comes to taking the piss of the, Out the Prophet and cartoons and this kind of stuff. And they have, I don't know if you saw, I was in London in Speaker's Corner, and I recorded a video of me talking to Muslims about, is it okay for me to draw a cartoon of the Prophet?
Yes.
And I even said, can I draw a cartoon of the Prophet of him just sitting on a bench, or just maybe picking some flowers in a non-offensive way? I'm not talking about a vulgar, overly racialized, overly sexual portrayal. I'm just saying, like, sitting on a bench. And the reaction they had, I mean, you can check it out on YouTube.
I did see it, yeah.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And these are people born in Britain, speak the language, know the culture, there is no difference, like, between culturally speaking them and a white guy. Or they've been raised in the same country, saw the same TV shows, whatever it is. But because of this mental thing in their minds, you cannot make fun of the Prophet, you cannot make fun of God, because that one little code it just stops them. Does you get that error, divide by 0, and it just goes like, what? Make fun? No, you can't. Malfunctioning, and you just can't reason with that. And provocative. I'm just simply saying, like, yeah, you find him to be an amazing guy, but I don't. And why should I run my life according to your sensitivities?
Yeah.
But I don't know how we can get that through to them. I'm trying through comedy. Yeah. And maybe it's working on some level.
It's so funny, because if I walked up to everybody around me here where I live, if I walked up to everybody around me, and if I told them, I love Arsenal Football Club, I think it's the greatest club in the world, and you have to love it too. And they said, yeah, Mike, get out of here. And if they said that, I murdered them. If I tell somebody that story, they'll tell me, what the hell kind of an idiot are you, Sham? But is it very different from what I'm trying to do here? It's not really that different from what I'm trying to do here. You know what I mean? Like, when it's amazing. A parallel, it sounds silly when you draw a parallel.
I'm glad you said that. There are parallels also between people who have the most outrage when they get offended, but at the same time, they want you to succumb to their ways of life. So whether it's SJW left, people who want you to say certain pronouns or want you to think a certain way and don't say this word because that's fine. So they're taking your territory. But if you push back or just say, I'm not really sure I want to, what? How dare you? How offensive, how racist, how Islamophobic, how this, how that. So amazing how these people love to throw their toys out the pram when you say something against them, or just say things that are kind of true, like you find him to be great, I don't. Okay, or I don't think Trump is a Nazi. What?
Yeah,
it's just this disproportionate reaction they have. And at the same time, they want your territory, intellectual territory, cultural territory, whatever you want to call it. It's they are just crazy, genuinely crazy.
Do you remember when there was this? I remember I saw this thing. There was this flyer posted in some university somewhere in the U.S. with a flyer. It only said it's okay to be white, and everybody lost their minds. I was like, that is probably the least offensive flyer I've ever seen. And everybody lost their minds on social media.
I honestly, sometimes I feel really sorry for white people. I honestly feel so sorry, because just saying it's okay to be white has become, it's like saying it's okay to be a Nazi that kills 6 million Jews. I mean, that's what they read when they see that.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, like, white people, if you're listening, you need to get your shit together. Grow a bit of a backbone, okay? Listen, I'm going to sound very controversial, but we need you, okay? On some level, we need you, right? So we need to stand up for yourself and stop bending over backwards for people who don't give a shit about your existence. Whether it's the SJWs or Islamists or communists or whoever they are, they don't give a damn about your existence or about your survival. So stop catering to their needs, for God's sake. Push back. It's okay to punch back sometimes, all right? So, sorry, that's my white, pro-right. Someone's going to take this and say, this guy's a Nazi. He's a pro-white. Yes, I'm going to say, I'm a Nazi. What are you going to do? There you go.
Sure you don't work for Rebel Media?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But is it okay if I ask you a question? Because I got a question from, I think, one of my followers. He said that you're going to go on the Sham Sharma show. So he said, when you go on the Sham Sharma show later today, can you ask him to explain his opinion on Indian Muslims? Does he think of them as responsible for crimes committed by Muslim rulers in the past? Does he think they should have equal rights and equal citizenship? Of course. Also, what?
No, of course not. What the hell?
Yeah, I was going to say, of course. Also, what are... no, they should be second class. Yeah. I want a gulag. Also, what are the rights of non-Hindu Indians under Hindu nationalism movement? So that is the question. So I mean, let's start with the first part, if you may.
Right.
What do you think the Muslims now in India are responsible for past historical grievances?
Of course they're not. The people that committed the murders and the people that committed the atrocities are responsible for that. What the problem that I have is not that I hold today's Muslims responsible for the murders that happened in the past. The problem that I have is that there are a section of Muslims, and again I say a section of Muslims because it is only a section, because it is not all of them, because there's a section of Muslims that celebrate those people. There's a section of Muslims, like I said, that name their kids after those people. So if you're naming your children after the people who murdered millions of Hindus, I don't know necessarily what to make of that. Do I make of that you hate that person? You hate that person so much that you named your kid after that person? Is that the takeaway that I should be taking here? That's the part that confuses me. The part that confuses me is when these people are celebrated. That's the part that confuses me, because I don't hold you responsible, of course, but when you celebrate the person that was responsible, what do you want me to make of that? That's the first part of the question. And what was the second part?
Where do non-Hindu people also, what are the rights of non-Hindu Indians under Hindu nationalism movement?
The riots of non-Hindu Indians under the Hindu nationalism movement? I don't even know if there's a Hindu Nash. Does he mean like non-Hindu riots in Indian states? I don't really know what that question is.
Oh, no, sorry, not riots, rights.
Rights. When it comes to rights, I defer to the Constitution of India. Simply and simple as that. Because in India, there's a strong belief in the separation between church and state, and when it comes to rights of people, we defer to the Constitution for that. We don't defer to religion when it comes to the rights of people. Rights of people, Constitution. Everybody is to be treated equally under law. Simple as that.
There you go. Fantastic answer. That was from a follower of mine. Thank you for answering that question.
And thank you for the question as well, whoever it was. So make sure to thank them for me. So thank you for the question as well. And yeah, I mean, India is a democracy, and India is a democracy for a reason. It is because a large majority of Indians would prefer it that way. And so under that democracy, we have created these rules ourselves, not under duress from anyone, not under consultation from anyone. We have chosen these rules from our own volition. We want to make sure that we live in a society where everybody is treated equally under law, and that is why we put it in the Constitution, and that is how I want it to be.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me ask you something. There's a couple of questions from here as well. Actually, let me ask you something that I wanted to that I sort of wanted to ask before. What do you notice that in Europe, there's, and in like other places across the world as well, there's these small little movements of people sort of rediscovering their native cultures, so to say? Because I read a piece of news that in Slovakia or Slovenia, I don't know which, but in Slovakia or Slovenia, their parliament or their government recently passed a law or passed a bill or something where the native culture of the Slovakians or the Slovenians was now recognized as an official government religion, was, you know, a state religion or something like that. Not a state religion, but an official religion, I think, just the way Christianity is. So it was recognized that way. And there's this movement, even though it's a small movement, but there's a movement within Iran of people sort of going back or reverting back to their native sort of Zoroastrian Parsi culture. And one of the reasons why I think that's happening is because native cultures, whatever you might say about them, but native cultures across the globe had that feeling, or had that feeling among them of that diversity. Because you look at Greece, you look at the Roman culture, you look at Egypt, all of those cultures had, of course, small problems within them. But at the same time, they also had, you know, a multiplicity of ways of thinking, a multiplicity of beliefs, a relatively liberal culture compared to sort of the Abrahamic structure, a relatively liberal culture. And that was a very common theme with ancient cultures across the globe. Do you see some utility in that? Do you see that as in any way useful?
Yeah, I think we touched on this when we spoke with Farhan.
Yep.
Where you have people in Africa who are retracing their sort of Kemetic roots, as they say, sort of Kemetic religion. Iran, you have Zoroastrians. In Europe, you have these sort of Norse or kind of a Viking kind of religions. I'm not really sure what to call them. But yeah, there is this movement. I don't know if people are just kind of sick and tired of Abrahamic faiths in general, or if they see Christianity as somewhat weak now, and it maybe doesn't have that same potent force as it used to have. And I mean, I grew up in a Christian country my whole life, and not trying to be disrespectful to Christians, but I just kind of thought it was boring. They didn't have the same zeal or the same enthusiasm about their religion the same way maybe a Muslim or a Hindu would have. And it was sort of like, meh, whatever. So maybe there is a return to sort of these native religions or polytheism or whatever you want to call it. And this is on a completely side note, but I don't know if they're related. They may be, but they may not be. Jordan Peterson, he was asked, because, you know, he does a lot of analysis of like Disney movies or like movies in general. And I can't remember, he said something like the Avengers, you know, these Avengers. I haven't actually watched the Avengers, whatever it is. But he was saying, yeah, the reason why these things are so popular is because this is a return to polytheism. Like on some level, the fact that these are all superheroes, like tens of superheroes in different places all over the world, and they're collaborating together or they're warring against each other. This is basically like, you know, a Greek god or a Hindu god's story. So I genuinely don't know if I'm being Deepak Chopra right now or I'm not. I'm just putting this out there and saying, when I heard that, coupled with the fact that there are people across Europe and in the Middle East and Africa who are returning to more, like you were saying, native religions or polytheistic religions, and that these movies are very, very sort of popular. I don't know if it's culture influences or whatever, you know, movies influence culture or vice versa. So yeah, I think maybe there is this movement, and maybe you know, there is wisdom in the old sort of, what do you want to call it, civilizations of old, and wrong with it. But maybe people are returning back to that, trying to find something a bit more meaningful. So yeah, it's a very interesting space. I'm speaking completely out of ignorance, but I'm planning to read the Bhagavad Gita because I don't know anything about it.
Right.
I don't know anything about Hinduism other than a few Vishnu, Shiva, Ram. Other than these names, for me,
well,
Hinduism.
I can recommend you a couple of books that you can take a look at. It's just
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, absolutely.
like a weekend read.
Yeah, that would be great. And for me, Hinduism was the scene in the Bollywood movie where it's like, that was the sort of
in those Karan Johar movies.
Yeah. And it was the sort of this and then that and then namaste. And that was for me Hinduism. I knew nothing about Hinduism other than that someone singing in the background and there's this scene, the arti, and that was it. So for me, I'm like, I don't know jack about this religion, which is like a pretty big religion, by the way, and a very long history. And geographically, there's obviously ties there, so I probably should do some reading on that. But yeah, so I'm speaking way out of it. Stop watching these Bollywood movies and read some books. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the West there's this movement of appreciating a lot of the work, a lot of sort of Eastern cultural things like meditation, which is now called mindfulness in the West. It's basically a kind of appropriation where you take the practice and you give it your own name and you strip it from all the meaning, all the cultural and sort of meaning that it used to have. So meditation in the West is called mindfulness. Then you take yoga, which is supposed to be yoga basically in Indic philosophy is supposed to be the greatest sort of religious practice that you can do, because it is yoga through which you connect with the cosmos. It is through yoga that you become one with the cosmos. It is through the various steps. It's called Ashtanga yoga, which means it has 8 steps. And the poses that people do in yoga, that's only one small step. And there are 8 other steps that you do in yoga, which allows you to become one with the universe, which is the ultimate goal, let's say. So there's these things where there's this thing that happens in the West, that they take the good stuff, that they take all the good stuff because they see how useful meditation is. They see how insanely useful something like yoga is. They see how insanely useful certain aspects of Indian Hindu culture is, but they take it, appropriate it, they give it sort of a Western coat of paint, and then they turn around and say, look how backward the bloody Hindus are. And it's so funny because you use stuff that we have and then you take it, name it, and then you turn around and then you call us backwards. That's like a very interesting thing that's happening from like an Indian perspective. When you look at stuff that's happening in the West with an Indian perspective, that's one of the interesting things you see.
Yeah, this is what me and Kaushal were talking about. Very similar, I think, if not the same kind of stuff, like yoga and others, maybe meditation and other practices. You sort of package it up and call it something else or whatever it is. But you should always respect the roots of whatever practice or whatever martial arts or food or whatever it is. You should always respect. There's nothing wrong with cross-pollination. I think it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, if they are saying mindfulness or if they're using yoga, there's something going on here that's pretty good. And it works, and it's something which is useful. So I think it's a massive compliment. But there's nothing wrong with saying, by the way, guys, you do know this is from some brown people in India. There's nothing wrong with nothing wrong with you guys doing it or selling it or practicing it. I think it's great. I think it's the biggest compliment anyone can give to your culture. Absolutely. Is I like this thing. I want it for my people as well. But yeah. I'm also actually getting into meditation as well. I don't know
that's awesome, man. Yeah, that's one of the big ways. It's meditation. The most important thing with meditation is that usually our senses are sort of focused on the outside. It goes outside. Our senses immediately run outside. Focus on outside things. The key to meditation is drawing everything inside. So that's supposed to be the key to meditation. That you're drawing everything from outside inside, and you're focusing inside. And the longer you do it, the more years you spend doing it, the more because it is said that, a part of the universe or the part of the cosmos resides inside you, because you're of course part of it. Everything that you are made out of is present in the cosmos, all the atoms, all the molecules. So the more you focus inside, the more your connection with the cosmos grows. That's the theory, so to say. And there are yogis who have been meditating for decades who openly say that I can go in and out, like I can close my eyes and I can find that connection with the cosmos immediately. And they say that it's probably one of the most profound experiences of their lives. I've been meditating a little bit, but I haven't gotten to that point yet, but who knows what'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, I have started meditating, and for me, like, I used to pray like namaz or salah, whatever it is. And one of the reasons why I maybe struggled with that is because I'm saying stuff in a language I don't really understand. It was very, you have to pray at this time of day, 5 times a day, whether you like it or not. So there was that sort of regimented thing, which kind of annoyed me. I was like, oh, I don't want to pray right now. Like, I don't want to. Like, what if I'm doing something else? It kind of annoyed me. I mean, some people love it, so I don't want to bash the whole thing in general. Sure. Some people, like my mom and my grandma, love it. For them, it's sort of 5 markers within the day, like 5 different moments, whatever. Like they say, oh, after this prayer or before this prayer. Like it worked for them, great. But with meditation, I don't have to say anything. I don't have to think anything. I can just be. And I almost try and visualize, like you were saying, try and bring it back to yourself. I just think of a silhouette figure with someone just doing this. I think just focus on this one point. And of course, your mind wanders off, but then you try and bring it back to that one point again. And the more you bring, it's like a muscle, isn't it? The more you bring it back, just the stronger you can bring it back, and the faster you can bring it back to that point. And when I come out, like, I've got this app called Headspace. I don't know. It's like 3 minute, 5 minute. Yeah. So I like, this is very basic. I'm just doing the basic stuff. I forget about doing yoga. It's just forget about some yogi in his underpants with the beard and long hair on the top of an icy mountain. I haven't got to that level yet. Where he's in tune with nature and a butterfly sits on his finger here, and I'm not on that level, man. I'm just trying to sit still.
Hey, you are Kashmiri. They were really into that stuff.
Yeah. My friend, who I really want to get on Kashyap, that's what he was saying. Okay. From Kashmir, yes. Yogis. There were 7 yogis. One went to Kashmir or whatever. Anyway.
Yes.
I really do find the whole idea of meditation very, very interesting, because I go to the gym, and for me, gym is you expend your energy. It's outward. I'm going to gym. I'm lifting something. It's I'm pushing out. It's all outward. But I think sometimes you got to bring it back in. I know this sounds very hairy-fairy right now, but that's the only way I can explain it, really, to be honest with you.
No, you're absolutely right. And okay, one of the questions that I got actually was on Facebook, and it was a question that I wanted to ask, and I'm happy that somebody was able to ask that on Facebook as well. They were asking that with sort of spiritual experience, I don't even want to call it religious experience, but with like spiritual experience, and let's call it religious experience just for popular parlance's sake. So for such a long time, religious experience has been focused on, okay, this guy saw the truth. You can't see it. The only way you have any connection to it whatsoever is if you listen to what this guy has to say to you. But I think what would be better is if you focus on something like, okay, how can I experience it myself? Because for such a long time, it's like, okay, you get it either from the imam, you get it either from the priest. You can't have the experience. That's why we need the imam and the priests and the prophets and the son of God and so on and so forth. But in India, one of the big aspects of it, and I don't know about other ancient cultures, and I'm sure they've had an aspect of that as well. I'm not that well versed on other ancient cultures, but in India, at the very least, you have a system where the greatest religious exercise, if you can call it that, is to find it for yourself or to experience it for yourself. That is why meditation is such a key thing in Indian philosophy, is because you are doing the experiencing. Nobody else is doing it for you. You experience it yourself. And if you don't, until you don't experience it, it doesn't exist. So you experience it. That's the only way it exists. You don't take anybody's word for it. If anybody tells you, I know the truth, listen to me, run the hell away from them. You know, the most pure religious experiences is when you have it yourself. And don't you think that in an age where we live today, that we should be finding the answers ourselves, or at least, very least, looking ourselves, rather than just being like, all right, that guy said something to me, all right, I take his word for it. Don't you think that's just a better way to go about it today?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the closest thing I think you have to what you said in Islam is probably some sort of Sufism, where they do a lot of dhikr, a lot of sort of meditation, like, but they're, you know, there's different techniques where they keep repeating words and words and they whatever. So that's probably the closest thing they have, I think. And I think there's something similar within Christianity, but oftentimes these Sufis sort of sects are seen as heretical or sort of exactly. So there is that aspect within Islam, and I actually like that part of Islam in the beginning. But the problem with me is that they unfortunately run into this trap of this whole bead sab and this sort of cult kind of behavior. Or bead sab, you know, give me the blessings and let me kiss your hand and your beard or whatever, this kind of stuff. That's when it puts me off. But if someone said to me, "Don't follow me, find it for yourself," hey, that sounds great. But what you said is true. I know, you know, if someone says, "I know the truth, follow me," okay, my alarm bells are going off. I'm going to be very, very suspicious, very suspect. But if someone said, "Listen, I tried this method myself, try it yourself. Just give it a go. If it works, great. If it doesn't, try something else." I think that should be the sort of journey for everyone, not only in religious terms, but in political, in economic, in personal. That really is the most empowering thing, really. I think it's one thing to blame the leaders, the people that say it, but you also have to blame the followers, right? Because at the end of the day, it's your choice if you want to follow that. People want the easy way out. They want someone to say, "I know the answers, follow me," and then, "Okay, fine, I'll follow you." That's easy. That's lazy. Have you done it yourself?
Yep.
Are you willing to take the risk, go out on a limb, and maybe discover that you're wrong? And it hurts to be wrong. It hurts to be vulnerable. But that's how you learn. That's how you grow. We live in I mean, this has always been true, but people want easy answers. So let's go for some guy who's going to think for them or manipulate them, who's going to think for them and say, live your life in X, Y, and Z way, and you will have all the answers. That's lazy. That's easy. And it's actually self-destructive. It is self-destructive. And you need to have this thing, well, okay, let me try it myself. Let me see if I can come up with something just maybe even 1% better. Maybe you can. Have you tried? No, you haven't. So why are you going to doubt yourself from the beginning, you know? We've heard of so many stories, whether it's in a religious context or in a sporting context, in any context, where the teacher, where the student sometimes surpasses the teacher, you know? But that's only because they've dedicated themselves to that discipline and gone the extra mile. You know, so that's what I would say.
Yeah, I was reading this very interesting book. It was by this guy called Michael Pollan, and it's a bit of a sidetrack. It's not necessarily related, but he does a lot of work with. He wrote a book about like a psychedelic research, right? And he was talking about psychedelic research and the effect that it has on people. And they were saying that one of the biggest effects that it's having on people is that people are having experiences themselves, profound experiences themselves. And one of the most common themes in all the experiences that people are having is one, which is the dissolution of their ego. And the second that they're having is this insane feeling of connectedness with everything in the universe. Those are the two most common feelings that they're having. And they're describing these things as the most, as the top 5 most profound experience of their lives. This like 20-minute whatever experience that they had on psychedelics. Now, I'm not saying this is anything religious or anything like that, but I'm just saying that at the very least, man, I know it's not the most ideal way to have an experience, and it isn't. But at the very least, it's people having those experiences themselves, rather than just some dude just walking up to them and telling them, "This is the truth, believe it or die." You know what I mean? At the very least, you're experiencing it yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, I am someone who has never really taken drugs or smoked that much weed. The only time I've been really high was when I was in Pakistan. I went to a Sufi shrine with my cousin, and everyone was smoking weed. So I was there for maybe 20 minutes, and I just inhaled it, and I was like, "Whoa, where am I?" That was the only really time, really. So when and obviously coming from a Muslim perspective, drugs and alcohol is very bad. It's looked down upon. So when I was hearing this psychedelic stuff, whether it's Joe Rogan, whether it's Graham Hancock, whether it's Jordan Peterson, whether it's all these other guys, Brian Rose from London Real, who are very these guys have achieved stuff. They're not bums. These guys they're masters of what they do. And when they're saying, we take psychedelics or they smoke cannabis and they had the experiences and this has changed their life for the better, and it was like a threshold, I can't see the world the same way as I saw it beforehand. You have to maybe give some credibility to that. You have to think about that seriously. And even Jordan Peterson saying that, psychedelics their research has been ignored or suppressed for a very, very long time. Who knows? If people realize that you can experience something yourself, then the imam or the pastor is no longer necessary. Maybe because of that reason.
That's right.
Maybe because of that, or some other reason. So it's something which I definitely want to try out when I'm maybe around 40, 45 years old. I don't know why I've chosen that. Maybe to avert my midlife crisis.
Specific number.
Yeah, to avert my midlife crisis,
right.
I'm gonna have some ayahuasca in the Amazon rainforest in Brazil, surrounded by
I'll
whatever.
Take you up on that offer. I'll come with
Mate,
you.
I'm on it.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking. I really want to do it.
Let's go do it.
I'm being serious, man.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm down, dude.
Guys, you heard it here. You heard it here.
You heard it here in 2018.
That's it. So in around 20 years' time, if you are on it, man, I'm not even joking. I've said I want to do it at that age, around 40 to 45 years old. I think it's good to challenge yourself and to put yourself in a different situation, different environment. Especially someone who doesn't really do drugs, whatever it is. I'm not looking down on you if you do, but I'm saying I don't really do that. So for me, I'm doing it purely. I want to see what happens, man. Like, it's one thing to read a book about it; it's another thing to do it, right? And I think this may or may not be a sort of similar or parallel. You know the reason why a lot of like Abrahamic religions the men get circumcised. I was hearing from someone that it's because there's a lot of sexual pleasure like if you have foreskin. So to stop you masturbating, to stop you masturbating or having sexual pleasure outside of marriage, they took off your foreskin.
Whoa, that's wild, dude.
And that's the same reason why female genital mutilation happens, is because in the clitoris there's a lot of sexual pleasure. You take that off, they say that women are less likely to cheat on their husbands.
What?
So the same way they're trying to take away sexual pleasure by circumcision or mutilation, they're taking away maybe intellectual or spiritual openness and pleasure from saying drugs, alcohol, psychedelics, wrong, haram, prohibited, whatever. Maybe I'm making too big of a jump, but that's the way I see it, possibly.
No, you're right. And, in the book that I was reading, he was also talking about, people that have been meditating for a very long time. And when you scan their brains, and the people that are on those psychedelics, their brains show very similar levels of activity. So what they're saying is, with meditation, on the psychedelics, you're having experiences, but you're unable to control those experiences. But what he said was that with meditation, you're actually able to have control on those experiences. Now, of course, meditation's a lot harder to do, and that is why the payoff is better, that you can control those experiences. So that's why I started meditating recently, and I want to do it for a very extended period of time so I can actually control it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's like meditation, psychedelics, these things take out the middleman.
Yeah.
We are taking these guys out of a job,
out
of a huge multi-billion trillion dollar industry that they have created, and they are looting people. They are looting you, and people want to be looted. People are happily giving them, take my money, Peter Saab or pastor or whoever it is, or Panditji, Guruji, or take my money here. You do it. You whatever you say, I'll do. Okay, or whatever. They are looting you. And the thing is, when you realize you have these devices, these tools, these sort of ancient practices which you can do yourself to get yourself to that enlightenment or empowerment, or even if it's just getting through your day. Forget about a yogi on the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
Stop relying on praying to a god or hero. They just say, you know what, maybe I can do it myself. That is the real empowerment. And if you're not pushing for, and I'm very suspicious of someone who says, I've got the answers. Someone should say to you, you got the answers.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Saying a real leader would say, you have the answers inside you. You have to do the hard work and figure out for yourself.
That's the bloody root of Indian philosophy that people don't know about. That's the bloody root.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's fantastic. It's like, for example, you know, it's like a personal trainer who says, forget about working out, take some steroids. You know, buy the steroids from me, right? I'll provide you with the steroids, and you will get ripped. The real personal trainer will say, you have to lift your own weights. I can't do that for you, my son.
Yeah, so stop eating candy and start eating some kale and start lifting some stuff.
That's it. Eat some dal chawal, but brown rice only. Yeah.
But brown rice. Okay, brown so before we wrap up, I want to take a couple of questions from the audience. So Kushal Mehra has already asked this twice, despite trolling us a few times. So
he is a master troll. I'm sorry, but unbelievable.
He wants to know about the system of the Mutazilites. Do you know about that a little bit?
I know some of it, yes. Okay,
so he was like, explain the system of Mutazilites a little bit, which is something that I don't know.
So the Mutazila, I mean, this is a lot of stuff about them. I, the sort of basics. I was very close to becoming one of them, or I thought I was one of them, possibly. They are basically the rationalists within Islam, and they were sort of killed off either intellectually or physically by other Muslims. And they were saying that if you find something within the Quran that does not make sense, go with your own brain. Which, of course, is like, what the hell? You can't, like, are you questioning God's wisdom or whatever it is? So they were people who were rationalists. Now, I'm not saying that they were perfect or whatever it is, but this was the movement, this is the sort of basic fundamentals of the movement. If you don't find something that doesn't make sense, forget about it. And they were seen as heretics. Surprise, surprise, by other Muslims, and their movement didn't really get off the ground. I don't know if they had a few kings or caliphs here and there, but other than that, didn't really do much, unfortunately. And one of the people that I was most inspired by or influenced by when I was in university doing my master's was this guy called Abdul Karim Soroush. He's he's an Iranian intellectual who I find absolutely amazing, his works. And he referred to himself as a neo-Mu'tazilite. And I was like, wow. So he's actually using that term to classify his own rationalism within an Islamic context. He's trying to revive that term. So if you're interested in the Mu'tazila or rational Islam, check out Abdul Karim Soroush. He's an Iranian intellectual Muslim guy. Again, very religious and spiritual. But at the same time, he understands, listen, there's a time and place for religion, and there's a time and place for rationality. And we were talking earlier about reform. I mean, his ideas are superb. I mean, he even goes as far as to say that God spoke to Muhammad, but Muhammad had to interpret God's message. And you can see flavors of Muhammad's personality in the Quran. Now, no mainstream Muslim would want to admit that, because then you're saying that Muhammad had some sort of influence on God's word. But he's saying, listen, you can see Muhammad's personality in the Quran. And at the end of the day, Muhammad had to interpret in his own mind what God was saying to him. Now, that's a huge step. I don't know if it may not sound huge maybe in a Hindu context, but in a Muslim context, that is huge. Because you're kind of saying, this guy had a bit of a say in what was said. So that's what he was saying, and this is maybe where the rationalism comes in. Like, even if something is divine, just by mere fact it goes through a human being, it makes it not as divine as it was before. So that's why I would say
that's an interesting one, man. I never knew about that.
He's not someone who's that well. He's not a household name. This is the problem. You have real intellectuals who have really earned their stripes, but they're not household names. The household names are these sort of riff-raff, this sort of, street dawah kind of, oh yeah, brother, like, you got to convert to Islam, innit? Like, because like Allah said in the Quran, yeah, like, you got to worship him, innit? That's the kind of people that unfortunately people follow or people idolize. But the real intellectuals, they're unfortunately hidden in some sort of academic office or whatever it is. But he's got really good books. Like, they're actually quite short, some of the books, but they're deep, man. I had to read because I was writing an essay on one of them, and I read like 5 pages a good 10 times just to like. I was like, oh, I can't believe this guy's saying this.
Yeah.
But very, very profound.
That's very cool. It's funny because our Farhan Qureshi was just on here telling us kudos for talking about psychedelics on the show.
Yeah, Farhan Qureshi is a legend, man. Big up to Farhan Qureshi.
Yeah. I wanna make sure I get him down on the show one time soon as well. Yeah, no, so it'll be a great chat. Okay, we were talking a little bit earlier about Imran Khan, and there was a question here in the chat about him a little bit, and people want to know what, like, you've already made a video about this before, and we already talked about this a little bit before, but what they're asking here, and is that basically, do you see, you know, now that it's been a few days since he's been in power, do you still hold the same amount of optimism that you did before?
From a point of view of maybe economic policies, social policies, corruption or anti-corruption, yes, maybe I think he is cut from a different cloth when it comes to those things from the other riffraff of Pakistani politics. Yes, I think there is always the potential for change and improvement. 100%. I think, you know, he's the best out of the lot. So unfortunately, that's what we have. And obviously, I've not been keeping that up to date with some of the stuff, but I think he can improve the country. I just hope when someone says welfare state, I kind of get a bit, where is this going to end? But having the bar so low in Pakistan, maybe it won't be that bad in Pakistan. But obviously, like I said before, it's one thing to improve a policy here or there. Taxes 5%, now it's 10%, now it's 3%. These things will go up and down. But as I say, the soch, the vision, the nazar, what is your vision for the country?
Vision for the
long
nation.
term. Exactly. This is something which I'm not sure. I think he will improve it to some extent, but this whole Islamic, you know, kind of tainted vision is really worrying me, if I'm completely honest. I think a similar thing is happening in Turkey, where they're trying to recreate the Ottoman Caliphate, and Pakistan maybe is trying to sort of take a lead and say, oh, we will help out in Palestine, we will do blasphemy law, we will do X, Y, and Z. It's like, guys, sort out your own shit. All right, stop trying to recreate some sort of new caliphate or new global whatever it is. Because when the West do it, it's colonialism. But when you do it, well, that's just God's work. So I am worried about that. I hope it's just gas and it's just pure hot air, but I have no evidence to back that up. So maybe on economy, maybe on anti-corruption, yes, he will do good stuff, and I genuinely hope he does. But this whole Islamic vision is worrying me, given the fact that Turkey is doing a similar thing. And they will praise for his economic policy, and he was doing fantastic work, created a whole new middle class, very pro-business. Now it's maybe because he tried to get into the EU, and they were like, no, we don't want you. So it's like, F you to the EU. I'm now looking eastwards. I'm now looking to the Middle East. I will now want to recreate the Ottoman Empire or something like that. So maybe that kind of stuff is worrying me. So it's 50-50 with Imran Khan, I would say.
Okay. One question comes from Sonu Singh, who's asking that he's noticed that quite a few ex-Muslims, or either in social media or in general life in general, are quite antagonistic towards Hindu culture. Is that true? Or if it's true, why is it so, do you think? I don't know. I don't have much experience of that. I've seen some, but generally speaking, I don't. I
personally haven't seen it. Okay. I personally haven't seen. I mean, you're more than welcome to point out to me examples, and I can talk about that. But maybe the only thing I could say is perhaps because some ex-Muslims. This again, I'm guessing. I really am guessing because I haven't. The most ex-Muslims that I speak to don't really talk about Hinduism. For them, it's more about Islam.
Yeah.
In there, because a lot of them are atheist, so for them, they're like, I'm attacking all religions. I don't care which religion it is. I'm going after all of them. So maybe that is the perspective from which they're coming from. But one advice I would give to them: listen, Hinduism or Eastern religions are different from Abrahamic religions. That's not to say that they're you can't criticize or anything like that. I mean, go for it. I'm satirist, make fun of everything, but it is a bit different. And I've understood that over the last few months, speaking to Farhan, speaking to yourself and Kaushal. And like I said, I wasn't even prepared to have a discussion on it because I didn't even know what the rules of the game were. I didn't even know. When I speak to a Christian, I understand where he's coming from, God, this, that, prophet. With Hinduism, it's like, I was speaking to my friend, one of my best friends in the UK. He's from a Hindu background. And almost when he speaks, I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense. Yeah, but God, yeah, because we're speaking a different language.
Yeah.
So all I would say is just learn about it and then criticize.
Yeah, and then criticize it. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you're more than welcome to piss out anything you want, and I was always protect your rights to do that. But there is a bit of a difference between Hinduism, Buddhism, and Abrahamic faith. So yeah.
And one of the questions come from the handle Sanatan Dharma. He's asking, what is a good way to deal with the sort of Wahhabi Saudi influence in non-Arab countries? Because there's so much money that comes into these countries from the Arab countries, you know, especially the rich Arab countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and so on.
You know what? If he knows, please let us know, because this is a problem that we are facing in the Western world, and forget Western world. Even in Muslim countries, you hear about Pakistan, Bangladesh, and other countries like North African countries that were like Sufi and chill. They've become more Salafi or more Wahhabiized or whatever you want to call it. Saudi money, listen, money talks.
Yeah.
End of the day, if you're being bankrolled by Saudi, you're going to get stuff done. You're going that you will see the result of that money in your country, the result of that dawah, that proselytization. One thing you definitely do not do is give any territory to them. Do not cede any territory to these people. Okay, because they will take it and they will ask for more, right? They will never say, I want 1 inch and that's what I want. And then they'll say, well, you give me 1 inch, can I have another one? And another one. Yeah, एक और यार कोई बात नहीं, you know. मेरे दिल को बहुत दर्द होता है जब आप मेरी रसूल के मजाक बनाते हो. क्यों करते हो यार? कार्टून क्यों ड्रॉ करना है? क्यों ड्रॉ करना है यार? So don't give any ground. You have to stand. You may. This is and their tactic will be, oh, this is racism. This is thisism. This is thatism. Sorry, and I think this is where maybe ex-Muslims, because we're the same race, we have the same families, we have the same everything as you. And I'm saying I'm not going to stand for it. So what's your excuse now? You can't play the racism card with me. Okay. So do not give any ground. Say, listen, you're more than welcome to live here. These are the rules of the game. You have to follow the rules. The moment you make an exception, they will sneak through that crack and they will infiltrate and they will spread and they'll ask for more. So don't do that.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And I think a kind of corollary to that question would be a little bit as well that I think it's also developing a sort of a nationalistic feeling, if that's the right word. Maybe not, but something like, you know, we're not a feeling in non-Arab countries that we're not Arabs. We're from here where we live today, you know, that we're not Arabs. We don't have to look up to those people. Like there was this huge thing in India where for decades, you know, decades after being independent from Britain, Indians wanted to be like British people. You know, they wanted to go to British, you know, English schools. They wanted to talk like British people. They wanted to live in Britain. They wanted to have British friends. They didn't want to associate with their native culture, or they didn't want to associate with the places they were born in, you know. And I feel like that's the case with a lot of sort of non-Arab Muslim countries as well. They don't want to associate with the countries that they're actually born in, live in, and stuff like that. They want to associate with this foreign culture thousands of miles away. So I think that's a little bit of that as well. You know, they welcome it.
Yeah, what you have said is 100% accurate. You have people even in this country, UK or US, whatever it is, who they are born in Britain, raised in Britain, speak the language, know the culture inside out, yet they see themselves more aligned with Ottoman Empire, Mughal Empire, empires they've never seen, empires they don't really know that much about, but because they have this identity complex or whatever you want to call it, where on one hand, they're Muslim, and Islam is the truth. Yet Islam right now is in a weak position. They are living in Western countries which are either secular or Christian and are hedonistic, are bad, or this and that, liberal and whatever. All the things bad, all the things Islam says are bad, is encapsulated in the Western culture. Yet they're happy here. Yet they're successful here. How do I reconcile these two? On one side, my religion is saying this is the truth, but in reality, we are right at the bottom. On the other side, my enemy, quote unquote, the kuffar, their system is working and is actually pretty good. And this is the sort of conflict, the inner conflict a lot of people have. It's one of the conflicts I had. It's not uncommon. It happens a lot of the time, and I see it with family members, and it kind of hurts me because I see like they're carrying this chip on their shoulder. I'm like, guys, why do you want some sort of Sharia, or why do you want the downfall of this country? You do realize your children are going to be here, your grandchildren are going to be born here. It's going to affect them. Yeah. It's almost this sort of suicidal, not in like a blowing yourself up kind of way, but more in a cultural suicide. That they're okay with this country going down the chute because at least then the Muslims, like they don't want to bring the Muslims up, they want to bring the Europeans down because at least they're closer to them. It's a very strange way of thinking, and they have this more affinity with people like when I see Pakistanis. Oh, now you've opened up a box. Now you've struck a nerve. Now I'm gonna start going. Now you've, because I remember. Okay, now but I have to control myself. Okay,
go for it, man. Go for it.
I wish I had something to squeeze or something. Maybe someone's neck.
Let it fly.
But well, yeah. Oh boy. Okay. Now you've poked the bear. Okay.
Yeah. Full permission.
Okay. Let it fly. Because when I heard back in the days, and I was one of these people, but there was a bit of a turning point in my life when I heard like British Pakistani Muslims saying, "Oh, Palestine, oh, Syria, oh, okay." Are they saying, like, argument's sake, what's happening in Kashmir is very bad. Hindus are terrible people. Hindus are killing Muslims. Are those Arabs talking about Kashmir? Are those Arabs talking about what's happening in Pakistan? No. Yet you are begging to be so Arab that you will take on their causes. You will take on their suffering, their oppression, when they will not look at you. When you go to the Middle East, especially the Gulf states, they do not give a shit about Pakistan.
I hear the horror stories.
Oh my God. We are like dirt over there. Yet, I will wear their clothes. I will. Yeah, brother, you're not Arab. Would you ever hear an Arab say, "Oh, baisab, baisab"?
Yeah. Nope.
Would you ever see an Arab wear shalwar kameez or a dhoti or anything like that? Never in their life. Yeah, the amount of cultural begging that happens with Pakistanis and other Bengalis and other Muslims to become Arab with Turks as well, it is honestly slavish, slave-like. And when you hear like Pakistanis say, "We had the Ottoman Empire," sorry, who's we? Who's we? Who's we? Banjo, go to these countries. Go to these countries and say, "Oh, I'm Muslim brother, you Muslim brother." They were like, "Piss off, mate. Who are you? Who are you?" Right? The amount of begging that happens, it is unbelievable. The most self-debasing, humiliating thing I've seen from this. You say, "Oh, don't be like the white man. Don't be like the white man. You're a coconut." But at the same time, you want to be Arab. Well, you're not Arab. You can't speak the bloody language. Your religious book, you don't understand. You don't understand your religious book because you don't even know Arabic. Yet you are begging so much to be Arab when you live in the white man's country. You're reaping the benefits, that you have an inherent hatred for the white man when he clothes you and feeds you. Yet you're looking towards the Arab. And what are they giving you? Tell me what they. Oh, Viva Palestine, Banjo Palestine.
Exactly. Do you remember in 1929? I don't know if you know a little bit about that history, but in 1929, no, you're good. And I'm just adding to your point as well, because in 1929 there was this thing called Khilafat movement in India, in undivided India. There was this thing called Khilafat movement where the Muslims of undivided India were protesting and rioting across the country because the British had removed the Ottoman Empire, whoever the caliph was. They'd removed the caliph over there in Turkey, and Turkish people weren't as mad about it as the Indian Muslims were mad about it. So Indian Muslims were bloody rioting and screaming and shouting and wailing and beating their chests across the country when the bloody Turkish people were not bothered about it. And I'm just like, do you honestly believe that the Turkish Muslims give two shits about you? Do you honestly believe that?
Yeah.
You know?
And this is the sorry, go on.
No, yeah, and then go on. I was just adding to your point that this is not a new disease.
Yeah, this is how successful, in a negative way, the colonialism of these people has become. That they don't see themselves as part of the landscape where they live, where they have lived for thousands of years. They look the same as the Hindu neighbor, as the Sikh neighbor, as the Buddhist. They look the same. They speak the same. No. Humne Arab banna. We're going to speak like those guys who we've never met, we don't know anything about, we can't even speak the same language, yet we're going to beg to be this. I just, like, people say, oh, you're George, you're trying to be a coconut, you're trying to be white. Well, at least I live in a white country, at least my neighbors are white, at least I go to school with white people, I have more contact with white people, so if their quote-unquote whiteness rubs off on me, well, that's kind of natural. I don't live in an Arab country. Yep. I don't speak Arabic. I don't live with Arab neighbors. So if I'm imitating Arab people, that's even a more strange phenomenon. I'm trying to beg it. Honestly, when these guys wear thobes, you know, the thobe, that one piece.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what it does to me. It just infuriates me so much. And you know, from a purely jurisprudential point of view, from an Islamic point of view, the Prophet or the Sahabas or the companions probably wore something close to the shalwar kameez, because if these guys were in horses, on camels, it's very impractical to wear a thobe, right? Yeah. A one-piece suit. And they actually said you can wear a thobe if you are a hermaphrodite, because you don't know whether you're a man or a woman. So these guys who walk around with their thobe, this, that, and the other, you guys are dressing the garb of hermaphrodites. Go suck one, because I'm sick and tired of these quote-unquote packies. Oh, I'm packy, bruv. Yeah, packy. Oh, Pakistan in the bar, Pakistan in the bar. Wear thobe.
Yeah, that's amazing.
What are you? What are you? You're a confused packy Arab hermaphrodite. Honestly. It really annoys me. I should calm down now, because it's like, guys, you don't realize how stupid you look. Stupid.
That is amazing. That is amazing, isn't it? That's a crazy one. That's a crazy one, because that creates a strange feeling of unconnectedness to who you are. You know,
yep.
Because then if you ask them who are you, they'll say, well, I'm Pakistani, or I'm an Indian Muslim.
Pakistan's in the ball. Oh, Pakistan's in the ball. Yeah. Okay, cool. But you're begging to be Ottoman. You're begging to be Arab. You're begging to why? Such insecurity and such a complete lack of identity or any rootedness in anything real. They're begging to be people that they don't give a shit about.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's
no, you're right, and I think the problem is, you know, that is why I think there's so much chest beating over Islam in Pakistan, because if you take Islam out of the equation or even weaken it even a little bit, then what happens to the identity? You know, I think that's. Do you think that's a danger that they feel? Oops, looks like we got cut out again. But there's a lot of fun going on in the comment section, I see. Bhai log, everybody commenting something or that. I hope I was able to take most of your questions, guys. Yeah. I think what happened is he got disconnected a little bit. He might come back. I think his screen just froze. So we're gonna wrap it up anyway, because it's been a very long time. I think we've had a. Hey, mate. Oh, there we go. We're back.
So sorry about that. I don't know what the hell going on.
Yeah, no worries at all. I was just gonna tell them that, you know, I hope I was able to take enough questions, and we were gonna wrap it up, because I don't want to take too much of your
I'm happy to have more questions if you feel like it.
Okay.
We can go through some questions if you want. Not a problem.
Yeah. They're thinking. One of the questions that they're asking is comes from Mysterious Machine, and I'll make it the last question. I've taken a few. So they're asking, do you think, you know, do you pay any attention to Muslim countries in Southeast Asia, and do you think like a country like Indonesia is on its way to becoming the next Pakistan?
Sorry, do I think it will become the next Pakistan?
Yeah, like in terms of like sort of the
Oh.
religious ideology and the conservative attitude that Pakistan has. Do you think there's an opportunity?
Yeah, it is entirely possible, because the way that the movement is going is not more secularism, it's less secularism. It's a more prominent and public, robust Muslim identity. And they are using the model of previous caliphates or some sort of pan-Muslim, whatever, movement or whatever you want to call it. And Wahhabi money speaks, man. Wahhabi money is being spread across these countries. And it would not shock me if other countries that are kind of mild or supposedly mild then take a nasty turn and say, yep, now we are Muslim and this is a Muslim country and we want to connect with the Saudi brothers and the Pakistani brothers and the Bengali brothers and create some sort of... It would not surprise me. It would not surprise me.
Yeah. Okay. I want to make sure that I don't take too much of your time. And I think we've had a pretty productive conversation today as well. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I always enjoy talking to you when I do. You know, even when I'm on your show, it's always a fun time. And usually you're the one that says that whenever I go on his show, he always says that I'm just a learner, so I'm just going to let you speak. So it's been a good opportunity to sort of reverse the tables and be the one listening and get to know some of your thoughts and opinions. So again, man, thanks a lot for doing this. Thanks a lot for taking time out of your Saturday and talking to me today.
Oh man, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I've really enjoyed it. I wish we could do this again or have an even longer conversation. Every time I talk to you, there's so much more we could talk about still. So listen, thank you for calling me on, and I mean it. 45 years old, we're gonna go to Brazil and get the ayahuasca.
You heard it here, folks. Everybody watching, pay attention. You're right. 20 years, and you heard it here in 2018. It's gonna happen. Hey, listen, man. Again, I feel the same way. You know, whenever we talk, I always feel like we could go for like at least 2 hours more. And so, in the spirit of that, I want to make sure that we do this again soon, sometime. And it's either on your show or my show. I'd love to have you back over here again sometime, and just shoot the breeze, talk about some stuff that's going on, and just because it's such a fun time for me as well.
Listen, absolutely, man. Whenever you need me on your show, or I will call you my show again, very soon in the future, and let's do it again, bro.
All right. Again, guys, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you very much for your comments. Please, if you are not subscribed to VeeduVidz channel, go check it out. Go watch the videos and go subscribe to his channel. It's fantastic content. It's primo, believe me. So go take a look at that. And thank you very much for joining us today. If you enjoy what we do here on the Sharma Show, make sure to subscribe to the show's channel down below. I will see you guys again for the next episode. And until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys soon.